Usually, when we talk about a medical diagnosis, we expect this kind of engineering level precision.
Right, like a mechanic looking at a car.
Exactly. Like you break your arm, an X-ray shows a jagged white line, and the doctor just points to it. It's broken or it's not.
Yeah, it's a very comforting binary. We really like our problems to be, visible and easily categorized.
Totally. We want them strictly physical, but the moment you step into the world of human behavior,
Oh, yeah.
specifically, like the mysteries of cravings or addictions and willpower, that whole X-ray machine just shatters.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you're navigating this diagnostic landscape that is just entirely murky.
Yeah. And we're left trying to figure out why a highly intelligent person will knowingly and repeatedly consume things that lead to just terrible health outcomes.
Which is such a wild contradiction, right?
It is, and that contradiction is the exact puzzle we are taking apart today. Welcome to the Deep Dive, by the way. We are so glad you, our favorite curious mind, are here with us.
Absolutely.
So today, we're looking at a 2023 transcript. It's from a session featuring the teachings of Abraham Hicks.
Yeah, and this comes to us via the YouTube channel. I think it's called line 11.11, right?
Yeah, AH 11.11. And this whole conversation we're exploring, it was spurred by a question from an audience member. And what's interesting is this person is actually a vegan raw food health counselor.
Which makes the question so much more grounded.
Exactly. They asked this very practical question, which is basically, why do we have harmful cravings for things like junk food or alcohol or drugs?
Right, things that give you that momentary spike of pleasure, but, ultimately just spiral you down into physical degradation.
Yeah. It's like the eternal human question of self-sabotage.
It really is. And I think what makes this specific source material so compelling to analyze is its complete refusal to give you the standard nutritional lecture.
Oh, completely.
Like if you're looking for a breakdown of macronutrients or some chemical analysis of dopamine receptors, you are just not going to find it here.
Yeah, there is zero dietary finger-wagging in this text. Instead, our mission for this deep dive is to just completely rethink the nature of cravings and willpower from a radically different perspective.
It's a completely different paradigm, yeah.
We're exploring the idea that a craving is not merely like a chemical trap set by the food industry, but rather it's this intersection between your body's incredible cellular intelligence and something the source refers to as vibrational alignment.
The vibrational alignment.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this because the very first place the source goes is actually this really robust defense of the physical body.
Yeah, it doesn't treat the body like it's broken.
No, exactly. It paints the human mechanism not as this weak, flawed vessel that easily falls prey to addiction, but as this, and I quote, brilliant cellular mass.
That specific phrasing is so crucial to the entire framework. A brilliant cellular mass
Right.
with immense intelligence, whose primary directive, like its entire biological job, is to maintain natural balance.
Yeah, it's always seeking equilibrium.
Exactly. The transcript suggests that every single cell in your body is constantly performing this complex biological calculus to keep you balanced. It's essentially a self-healing, self-regulating engine of just immense power.
So, okay, imagine you introduce a substance to your body that is not exactly on the most healthy list.
Right, like a donut or something.
Yeah, or worse. The source describes this as something that isn't naturally accustomed to the body, maybe a distorted chemical compound or something that's just vibrationally out of alignment with natural health.
Okay.
You eat it, you drink it, you smoke it, whatever. What does this brilliant cellular mass actually do?
Well, it doesn't just passively accept the damage, right?
Right. It doesn't just shut down. It immediately begins to adjust to the presence of that foreign substance.
The body compensates, like cell by cell, system by system.
Yeah.
The internal intelligence essentially realizes, okay, the environment has changed, there's a new chemical reality present, and to keep the whole organism functioning, the body has to shift its entire baseline to accommodate this new input.
It's an incredibly efficient, miraculous adaptation engine.
It really is.
But, and this is the big but, that rapid adjustment comes with a massive catch.
Oh, yeah.
The body has now created a new artificial baseline that actually requires that distorted chemical just to feel normal.
Yes. The body's expecting it now.
Right. So it's like an overzealous smart thermostat in your house.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Yeah, so imagine it's the dead of winter, freezing outside, and you decide to just open a giant window in your living room.
Brr. Yeah.
Alrighty. So the smart thermostat instantly senses the ambient temperature plummeting. And in response, it kicks the heater into overdrive, right? Blasting hot air at maximum capacity to compensate for that freezing draft.
Just trying to keep the house at the baseline temperature.
Exactly. The system is doing its job perfectly. It doesn't judge the open window. It just balances the equation. But then, you suddenly close the window.
And the environmental input changes again.
Yep.
Now the freezing draft is gone, but the heater is still just blasting at absolute maximum.
Exactly. And the living room quickly becomes sweltering, suffocating, and completely unbearable until the whole climate control system can run its calculus again and readjust to the closed window.
And according to the source material, that uncomfortable, sweltering, agonizing period, that is exactly what we experience as a craving or physical withdrawal.
Yeah, the withdrawal is the readjustment.
Right. When you stop giving the body that junk food or that chemical, the body goes into withdrawal simply because it is out of adjustment again.
Wow.
It had successfully compensated for the junk, and without the junk present to push against, that compensation mechanism is just running wild.
So it's not even about the food itself. The text notes that people often mistakenly think their body actively desires the bad food.
Yeah, we use language like, oh, my body's screaming for sugar right now.
Or I really need a drink.
Right. But the reality presented here is that the body only wants what you've already given it.
It's just asking for the missing variable to complete its newly adapted math equation.
Yes. You aren't fighting a body that inherently craves destruction.
Oh.
You're experiencing a brilliant biological machine that's just trying to maintain a skewed balance.
That fundamentally shifts the blame, And the source actually provides a remarkably short timeline for how long it takes to fix that math and reset the baseline.
Yeah, this part blew my mind.
3 days.
A mere 72 hours.
It's crazy.
The claim is that if you can abstain from reintroducing that distorted substance into your system for just 3 days, the body will completely reset its natural balance.
Just 3 days.
Yeah, the cellular intelligence is so aggressive and so efficient that it will dismantle the artificial baseline and find its way back to ground zero in that short window.
I mean, 3 days seems almost impossibly short when you consider people struggle with, dietary demons for decades.
Oh, absolutely.
But the text points out that the hurdle isn't biological time. The hurdle is psychological endurance.
Right, getting through that sweltering heat.
Exactly. Most people cave before the 72 hours are up because the discomfort of the withdrawal, the heat of that thermostat, is just too high.
Yeah, so they give the body the junk food, the thermostat settles down, and then that illusion that the body actually needs this terrible food is heavily reinforced.
Totally. But if the cells are that efficient at resetting themselves and the biology is just brilliantly balancing the scales based on what we input, it kind of makes you wonder, why would anyone intentionally disrupt that balance in the first place?
Right. Why ingest the unaligned substance to begin with?
Yeah. And this is where we move from the physical mechanism of the craving to the root cause of the behavior. Because here, the source takes a really sharp turn away from biology.
Yeah, it ventures deep into the emotional and energetic realm.
It really focuses heavily on this idea that most people are operating purely on a reactive default mode.
It's a fascinating observation of human behavior, honestly.
Tell me about it.
The transcript argues that for the vast majority of people, their emotional state is entirely dictated by whatever they just happen to be observing in their immediate environment.
Right.
Like if they look at something pleasing, a beautiful sunset, a kind gesture, they feel good. If they observe something frustrating, traffic, a rude email, a stressful bank account, they feel bad.
Their internal state is just a helpless mirror of external circumstances.
Exactly.
And the text contrasts that reactive state with this concept called deliberate creation.
Deliberate creation.
Yeah, which involves choosing a thought specifically to produce a certain emotion, completely regardless of what is happening in the physical environment around you.
Which is hard to do.
Very hard. The source notes that this kind of deliberate internal focus is incredibly rare. We usually just let the outside world push our buttons.
What's fascinating here is the direct causal connection the source draws between this reactive negative emotional state and our physical cravings.
Okay, yeah, let's get into this.
The whole argument hinges on the idea of source energy. They use that specific esoteric term, but for our purposes, you can just think of it as your absolute natural baseline state of psychological and physical ease.
The profound well-being you feel when everything in life just feels aligned.
Exactly. And when you focus on things that displease you or you obsess over a sense of lack in your life, You energetically disconnect from that natural baseline.
You enter an out-of-balance state.
Right. A lackful state of
The
being.
lackful state. And the source poses this really brilliant question based on that premise.
Hmm.
In that unaligned, lackful state, what kinds of foods do you think you're a vibrational match to?
Oh, man. The heavy comfort foods.
Yeah.
The heavily processed junk foods.
You are hitting on the core thesis. You are literally vibrating at a frequency like an emotional density that perfectly matches a bag of heavily processed potato chips or a box of donuts.
Wow.
You aren't craving the food because the food is inherently irresistible or because you lack moral fortitude. You're craving the food because your current emotional density matches the physical density of that specific substance.
That is wild. And the source actually outlines an entire emotional scale to map this correlation between feelings and physical manifestations.
How does that work?
Well, if your dominant emotional set point is appreciation, joy, and love, that lightness matches the physical manifestation of vibrant, alive health.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, your body just naturally craves things that support that aliveness.
But if your emotional set point is hovering around, say, frustration or overwhelm, like you absolutely hate your job or you're constantly stressed about money.
Yeah, the source says that specific density matches the physical manifestation of frequent headaches or bodily tension.
Wow.
And the scale continues downward. If your vibration is grounded in really dense long-term fear or despair, that heavier frequency becomes a vibrational match for heavier, more serious diseases.
Which brings us back to understanding cravings through a totally new lens. Cravings act as a sort of early warning system.
Wait, so instead of viewing a sudden urge for, like, a pint of ice cream as a failure of willpower, this perspective suggests treating it as an alarm bell.
Precisely that. The source makes this really interesting comparison to how dreams function.
Sure.
It suggests that dreams are manifestations of your internal state that show up much faster than real-life physical events.
Right, because there's less resistance in a dream.
Exactly. And in that same vein, discord in your emotional vibration will show up as a craving for a detrimental food much faster than it will show up as an actual physical illness.
The craving is the canary in the coal mine.
Yes. It's your body's way of demonstrating that your emotional baseline is out of whack long before any permanent physical damage sets in.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because the transcript takes this foundational idea and uses it to flip traditional health and diet advice entirely upside down.
Oh boy.
We are wading into the territory of what I call the taco paradox.
The taco paradox. Okay, this is where the source makes its most provocative and probably controversial claim regarding human health.
Right, absolutely. Conventionally, if we look at someone who eats a diet of terrible processed food and subsequently gets sick, we piece the logic together linearly.
Right. The detrimental food caused the illness. Cause and effect.
Clean, simple, and universally accepted by modern medicine. But the source steps in and says, actually, not quite right.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The framework asserts that the detrimental vibration of lack is actually the root cause of both the craving and the resulting illness.
So the food isn't the enemy.
The food itself is not the primary enemy causing the sickness. The food is merely a symptom of the exact same emotional misalignment that eventually degrades the body.
Which naturally leads the vegan raw food counselor, the one who's asking the question, to push back.
As they should.
And frankly, I'll push back on behalf of anyone listening right now who has ever tried to eat a balanced diet. Like, are we saying nutrition is a total myth? Because the questioner in the transcript literally asks, quote, theoretically, I could eat junk food, enjoy it, have my health enhanced, and live to 150 years on tacos.
It's a very specific yet kind of glorious hypothetical.
I mean, can I just eat a box of donuts every single morning as long as I have a big, genuine smile on my face? Does biology just stop applying?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is vital to understand the careful nuance the source is trying to convey here.
Okay, let's hear the nuance.
It is not giving a blanket endorsement of a junk food diet. And it isn't denying basic chemistry either.
Right.
Later in the text, it explicitly acknowledges that physical substances are not static. It agrees that there absolutely are foods that are a better, more natural vibrational match for the human mechanism.
So kale is chemically and energetically different than a Twinkie.
Exactly. The text doesn't pretend a deep-fried taco is identical to a fresh apple.
Right, it doesn't.
However, the teaching places its emphasis entirely on the sheer resilience and adaptive power of the human body.
Which goes back to the brilliant cellular mass.
Yes. The source calls the body a veritable chemical factory. The core argument is that your body has such immense leeway, such incredible facility and biological knowledge, that it can take almost anything you give it and figure out a way to derive value and benefit from it.
But only
Only provided your emotional baseline is rooted in absolute, unshakable well-being.
But if human biology is that adaptable, why don't we see a world full of junk food eaters thriving into their hundreds?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Why do the statistics overwhelmingly show that people eating highly processed diets suffer from chronic illnesses?
Well, the source attributes this phenomenon to a combination of the law of attraction and our own deeply held societal beliefs.
Okay.
And to understand this, without getting lost in mystical jargon, we can look at it through the lens of human psychology, specifically confirmation bias and the reticular activating system in the brain.
Oh, the brain's filtering mechanism.
Exactly. Your brain is bombarded with millions of pieces of information every second, so it uses your core beliefs to filter out what it thinks is irrelevant.
Makes sense.
The source argues that if you have already come to the firm, terrifying conclusion that junk food kills you, your perception is locked.
You literally will not be able to perceive or attract any evidence to the contrary.
Right. When you hear a story about, a 95-year-old who drinks whiskey and eats bacon every day, your brain immediately dismisses them as a statistical anomaly or a genetic freak.
While hyper-focusing on every medical study that supports your fear,
You only see the reality that matches your expectation.
right.
But the source insists that there are people out there thriving on seemingly terrible diets
Yeah.
simply because they aren't messing with their emotional alignment.
They have zero guilt.
Zero guilt, zero fear, zero internal resistance. They have the internal emotional journey completely figured out, so their robust cellular factory easily processes the suboptimal food without breaking down.
Which brings us to an incredibly practical, real-world anecdote from the source material.
Yes, I love this story.
Because we've been discussing high-level theories, right? Vibrational alignment, emotional scale, cellular calculus.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the theory.
But the transcript grounds this with a story about Jerry and Esther Hicks, the individuals who bring forth the Abraham material. It demonstrates what this looks like when you are actually standing in aisle 5 of a grocery store.
Grocery store experiment.
Exactly. So Jerry and Esther are in a market, and they essentially challenge Abraham. They say, if you were in our physical shoes right now, what foods would you choose to put in this cart to be most beneficial to us?
And Abraham proceeds to lead them through all the different departments, just tossing various items into the basket.
Yeah. And Jerry, being naturally inquisitive and, perhaps a bit skeptical of the process, looks at the random assortment and asks, what is it about this specific food that caused you to choose it over the others?
And Abraham replies with a single defining criterion. They say, there are no preservatives in any of this food.
Which Jerry doesn't quite believe right, because Abraham wasn't stopping to read the tiny print on the nutritional labels. They were just pulling things instinctively off the shelf.
Right.
So Jerry meticulously checks every single label on every item in the cart. And sure enough, he finds that not a single item contains preservatives.
It's wild. How did they do it without reading?
Well, the source says they chose the food vibrationally because those specific items were more alive.
That concept of biological aliveness is so central to their definition of beneficial food.
Yeah.
The source explains the stark reality of modern food manufacturing. If a company wants a loaf of bread to sit on a supermarket shelf for 3 weeks without developing mold, they have to alter its nature.
They have to actively introduce chemicals that halt natural biological processes.
Exactly. To stop the mold, you have to kill the active living ingredients inside the bread. You make the food fundamentally less alive.
And therefore less beneficial to the vibrant, living, brilliant cellular mass of your body.
Right, because you're trying to feed a living system with something that has been engineered to be dead.
The logic tracks perfectly.
Yeah.
But here's the most liberating part of that grocery store anecdote.
Okay, what is it?
Even with this profound understanding of aliveness, the source is not advocating for rigid, militant perfectionism.
Oh, thank goodness.
I know, right? The text notes that even though Esther now naturally gravitates toward those alive, unpreserved foods because she prefers how they feel, she still eats potato chips alongside her Subway sandwich on occasion.
Really? Why?
Simply because they taste good.
She eats the heavily processed chips just because she enjoys the taste.
Yep. The framework completely removes the burden of guilt.
Ah, and the guilt is the actual poison.
Exactly. Because she isn't acting out of a vibration of lack and she isn't terrified of the chips, she remains in emotional alignment.
She enjoys her life.
Yeah, and because she doesn't get carried away with obsession, she doesn't trigger a negative emotional spiral. According to this framework, her body's well-being is dominant enough to easily handle the occasional influx of preservatives.
So if we pull all of these threads together, the 3-day cellular reset, the emotional scale, the taco paradox, and the concept of vibrational shopping, what does this all mean for you, the listener, trying to navigate your own health and habits and late-night cravings?
The core takeaway here is a radical redefinition of what a craving actually represents.
Yeah.
A craving is not fundamentally about a desperate, inescapable need for a specific physical substance. It is, at its absolute root, a vibrational craving for alignment.
The source is telling us that you cannot fill an emotional or energetic void from the outside in.
You can't fill a feeling of lack by going to the mall and buying a bunch of new clothes.
Right.
You can't fill the void of a miserable job by eating a whole cake. And you certainly can't fill a sense of loneliness by drinking a bottle of wine.
The relief is always temporary because you're treating the wrong symptom.
The void isn't physical, so physical inputs will never patch it. You fill it by making a conscious decision to line up with who you really are.
You choose thoughts that produce better, lighter emotions. You practice deliberate creation.
And when you do that, your body's incredible natural intelligence is freed up to handle whatever physical inputs you give it.
You'll find yourself naturally guided toward what serves you best, entirely removing the need for strict, miserable diets and exhaustive lists of forbidden foods.
It really takes the immense pressure off the individual trying to navigate the diet industry, doesn't it? It puts the power entirely back into your internal emotional state.
It's very empowering.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, applying this highly adaptable framework to our physical diet is one thing. It makes me wonder about the other things we consume.
Ooh, this raises an important question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If we take this source material's logic, that our cells adapt perfectly and rapidly to the inputs we give them, constantly adjusting to maintain a new baseline.
Right.
What happens when we apply that exact same mechanism to our mental and psychological inputs?
Oh, wow. Yeah, what are the emotional junk foods we are indiscriminately consuming every single day?
Think about the doom scrolling on social media platforms, the outrage-driven 24-hour news cycles, the toxic workplace gossip, the constant comparison to curated lives online.
It's everywhere.
If our internal biological system aggressively compensates for a distorted chemical in just 3 days, has our psychological baseline secretly adjusted to this constant influx of digital anxiety?
Have we compensated so much for the noise and the outrage that we now actively crave negativity just to avoid the withdrawal of silence?
Yes.
Are we reaching for our phones the exact same way someone reaches for a cigarette, just to feed an artificial baseline that we accidentally distorted by leaving the mental window open too long?
It is a profound application of the source's theory. If you are constantly vibrating at a frequency of chronic digital overwhelm and manufactured outrage, what real-world experiences are you a vibrational match for?
That's terrifying to think about.
And perhaps more importantly, do you have the willingness to go through the 3-day withdrawal of putting the screen down, enduring the temporary discomfort, to let your brilliant internal mass find its natural, peaceful balance again?
That is something to seriously think about. We started this conversation talking about medical x-rays, how we desperately want our cravings to be this simple, visible, broken bone that we can just point to and fix with a pill or a strict 30-day meal plan.
Right.
But what the source material reveals is that the diagnostic picture isn't murky because the science is wrong. It's murky because we've been pointing the machine at the wrong thing entirely.
We've been relentlessly x-raying the food when we should have been examining the emotion.
Beautifully said. So for the next 3 days, maybe don't worry quite so much about every single ingredient on your plate. Maybe spend that time looking closely at your emotional thermostat and ask yourself, what kind of weather are you actively creating inside your own house?
A fascinating challenge to leave on.
We leave you with that thought to mull over. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. We love dissecting these ideas with you. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and pay close attention to what you're really craving.